Starting.
Yep, go.
Go.
Thank you very much. Welcome everyone tonight to this council meeting. In light of the current coronavirus situation, this meeting is being presented in a different way, virtually via live stream. The Victorian Government's COVID-19 Omnibus Emergency Measures Act 2020 has introduced new mechanisms that allows for virtual council meetings to be held between the 1st of May 2020 and the 2nd of October 2020. This ensures that local government decision making can continue during the coronavirus pandemic. The public are encouraged to watch virtual meetings through live streaming, which is available on Council's website and YouTube page. As chair of the meeting, I give my consent for this open council meeting to be recorded and published online in accordance with section 27 of the council's local law number 1 of 2019. The stream will stop at the conclusion of the meeting. Should technical issues prevent the continuation of the stream, every effort will be made to bring the stream back online as soon as possible. A recording will be made available on Council's website during the meeting. I will now run through the procedures to ensure the meeting runs as smoothly as possible in accordance with requirement 1 of the Minister's Good Practice Guideline. I will address each councillor individually to confirm the following: that they can hear the proceedings, that they can see other councillors in attendance, and they can be seen by other councillors and they can be heard when speaking. If a councillor is unable to confirm that they can hear or see the proceedings, or if they cannot be seen or heard, they will be recorded as absent in the minutes and be eligible to vote on agenda items. I will now confirm that all councillors can be seen and heard. Deputy Mayor, Councillor Joanne, can I please confirm that that I can be seen and heard?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I can see and hear everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gilbert, can you please now confirm that you can see and hear other councillors?
Yes, I can see and hear all councillors.
Thank you. Councillor David Evans, can you please confirm that you can see and hear other councillors?
Yes, I can see and hear all councillors. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Evans. Councillor Nathan Hansford, can you please confirm?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I can see and hear proceedings.
Thank you, Councillor Hansford. Councillor Kirby, can you also confirm that you can see and hear?
Yes, I can see and hear everybody.
Thank you very much, Councillor Kirby. Councillor Phelan, are you able to see and hear all councillors?
I can hear, but I can only see yourself, Councillor Hansford and Councillor Gilbert.
And are the other participants jumping up on screen when they start talking?
Only Councillor Kirby.
So I think that if you're on the iPad, when other councillors are speaking, they should pop up for you.
Right, I'll just play it by you.
Councillor Phelan, top left-hand corner of your screen, there'll be a button that comes up that says switch to active speaker. If you hit that, then the person speaking will come up on your screen.
I've pushed that. This iPad I've got's about 40 years old, so you've got to remember I'm on very aging technology.
Roger.
Councillor Lesrow, are you able to see and hear?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I can see and hear fellow councillors.
Thank you, Councillor Rowe. If any councillor drops out during the meeting, they will be recorded as having left the meeting, and at that time the meeting will continue on as normal. If a councillor rejoins the meeting, I will, in accordance with requirement 1 of the Minister's Good Practice Guideline, again ask the councillor to confirm that they can see and hear the proceedings and see others in attendance. Upon this confirmation, it will be recorded in the minutes that the councillor rejoined the meeting. Councillors, if you would like to move or second a motion, please raise your hand in a manner that can be clearly seen on your computer's camera. councillors, when voting on matters, please also raise your hand either for or against a motion in a manner that can be seen clearly on your computer's camera. Please leave your hand raised until I've declared the motion as being carried or lost. And just with that virtual, those with virtual backgrounds, you may have to just move your hand to the middle. Gets lost. If you wish to speak to an item during debate, please also raise your hands in a manner that can be seen clearly, and leave your hand raised until I've asked you to speak. This will allow me as the Mayor to manage the debate accordingly. When you are not speaking, please ensure that you are on mute. During the coronavirus situation and the meeting being held virtually, any public questions submitted will be read out by the Chief Executive Officer as proxy. Again, due to the coronavirus situation, any public presentations and submissions received in accordance with local law number 1 will be read out by myself as the Mayor after the introduction of the relevant report. The maximum time limit of 5 minutes still applies. Thank you. And just a further note to proceedings, councillors and those watching at home, please have full consideration and appreciation that this is, for us group of councillors, the first time that we've held one of these meetings virtually. So there was a frantic 10 minutes before we went live to try and get everything ready. Also appreciating that we have a couple of councillors here that are in remote areas in our Shire who don't experience at the best of times good internet connection. So full appreciation to that. I've just spent the last hour trying to negotiate with my 3 children to turn off all devices. So hopefully everything goes forward, but just a note of appreciation. Our opening declaration. We as the councillors of Golden Plains Shire declare that we will undertake on every occasion to carry out our duties in the best interest of the community, and that our conduct shall maintain the standards of the Code of Good Governance so that we may faithfully represent and uphold the trust placed in this council by the people of Golden Plains Shire. Council also would like to acknowledge the traditional Wadawurrung owners of the land where we are all meeting within the Shire today. Council pays its respect to the Wadawurrung elders, both past and present, and extends that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who are part of the Golden Plains Shire. Councillors, I don't believe we have any apologies for this meeting, but is there any requests of leave of absence? I don't believe there will be. Councillors, we have a resolution before us to confirm the minutes of the council meeting held on the 28th of July 2020 as circulated. Can I have someone move the previous minutes? Moved Councillor Rowe, seconded Councillor Hansford. All those in favour? Thank you. Do we have any declarations of conflicts of interest? No. Thank you. There has been no questions submitted for public question time tonight. Now we move on to consider the formal agenda. Item 7.1, Assembly of Councillors. I will take it as read. The recommendation is that Council notes the Assembly of Councillors record from the 29th of July 2020 to the 24th of August 2020 as attached. Can I have a mover?
Move.
Moved Councillor Hansford, seconded Councillor Gilbert. All those in favour? Motion is carried. Item 7.2, Delegates Report, the 28th of July to the 24th of August. Is there any councillors you'd like to speak to? And just again, councillors, for those that aren't speaking, just turn off the mute. Answer Kirby and Councillor Phelan, if you're able to. There's just some background noise there. Would anyone like to speak to their report? Councillor Evans, Hansford, Gilbert. Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple of meetings in the last month. One of the interesting ones was the transport pillar. Now, there's been a bit of questioning about the roundabout on the Midland Highway at the Clyde Road intersection. I actually asked in the meeting the transport people, why the $6.4 million price was for that. And the interesting thing is they reckon now, Vic Roads, that on any of their highways, 80, 100K, they're finding that it's an average of $6 million to do a roundabout. So in light of that, I don't think we want to be expecting a lot of roundabouts into the future. Another interesting thing was in the planning pillar. We were presented with the Barwon River master plan. Now, since I've been on that pillar, I have been advocating that they include the Mirrabul in the master plan, and fortunately, they now have included that. Now, I've only been a tiny part of that. Some of the local groups in the area, the land care groups, and that have been advocating for this. And as a result, that is now going all the way up to Meredith. So the Mirrabul being one of the most stressed rivers in the state, this is probably a good exercise going forward to get something done about that dismal situation. Now, I have another issue here. At our last council meeting, Councillor Feeling made a speech that I had no choice but to reply to. I entered council with the aim to address what I considered the financial mismanagement of the previous councils. During my time, I have repeatedly identified these issues and exposed them to the public. We now have a CEO who is actively dealing with these, and I have no doubt this will place this council into a better position that will result in greater respect from our residents. It has been my efforts alone to expose poor financial management, and I may well have inadvertently caused breaches of the code of conduct. I could have been a rubber stamp councillor, but then openness and transparency, in my opinion, would then be the loser. It is true that I have been given 3 token legal letters regarding alleged code breaches. I have never been fined or suspended. Had either of that occurred, I would have defended myself at VCAT and have no doubt that I would win my cases. In my opinion, those letters were used to intimidate me as a councillor. Inadvertent code breaches by councillors is common, but it's only I who has been inflicted by endless attacks in this area. The result of all of this is to make me work even harder to uncover poor financial behaviour. Councillor Phelan's statement that I have never apologised is wrong, and I have multiple emails to prove this. During my first year when he was mayor, I made a wrong comment in a meeting, told him that I would apologise at the next meeting. His advice was not to worry about it. Councillor Phelan is alleged to have said I should never be in the Audit and Risk Committee as I alone could bring down this council. If that
Point order, Mr. Mayor. I think if we're going on allegations of hearsay here and there and he said, she said, I think we've strayed slightly off the track of the point of this message, maybe.
David, I'm happy to let I appreciate your comments to start off with. I think we're going a little bit off topic. I have asked both yourself and Councillor Phelan to to sort your differences out. It's a shame that two of you can't speak to one another. I'm happy to leave it there, David, if Councillor Evans, if you're happy to do so.
Well, unfortunately, you weren't that way last meeting. If I could continue.
David, I'm happy to give you a little bit, but I am asking for you to be appreciative that we can't go to. I have asked you and Councillor Phelan to sort this out on numerous occasions.
Mr. Mayor, we've lost Councillor Kirby visually.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Kirby, I can hear you but can't see you.
Oh, I don't know why.
All good, I can hear.
All right, I'm just trying to see why you've lost me. All right, give me a sec.
Here you come.
Back. All right. Yeah, sorry about that. I just feel that it would be improper if we didn't let Councillor Evans continue. I'm hoping that it's not going to be along the same remarks that we had at the last meeting. So I think it's a fair right of reply today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kirby, and that echoes my previous comments. David, if you'd like to finish up and take the comments on of both Councillor Gilbert and Councillor Kirby that
Well, there is nothing in my reply that is incorrect. So I'm very disappointed that you're trying to gag me to defend myself.
Councillor Evans, I haven't done anything of the sort. I've taken 2 point of orders from both Councillor Gilbert and Councillor Kirby that have Councillor Kirby, and I agree with her, has asked you to continue and finish. But
well, I'll continue in light of your speech, but I'll have to take out a lot of what I wanted to say. Now, continuing on, Councillor Phelan reference regarding me causing this council time and money with officers chasing down rabbit holes. I ask, what is wrong with getting the full explanation before a decision is made? I have always been 100% prepared for meetings. My cross-examination of reports and policies is to ensure we have full scrutiny. During one council meeting in Linton, while I was questioning an officer's financial report, Councillor Phelan, who was the mayor, attempted to close down the meeting to stop me continuing. Fortunately, Councillor Sharkey support, we were able to get the meeting reopened. Councillor Phelan made a comment regarding Councillor Rowe and my abusive phone calls to him and his family. Councillor Rowe and I have worked closer than any other pair of councillors for 3 years. I have assisted Councillor Rowe in every area, from research, joint white papers, and even helping him on his farms when I've found him struggling. We would be on the phone 3 to 4 times a day, both personal and council related. We were in both opinions closer than brothers, and we had the confidence to dish out to each other on numerous occasions. I have no idea where that statement of abuse to family members come from, and totally deny that. I do not differentiate or place on a pillar a councillor, mayor, a CEO, or an officer. Position is not deserved, but earned. That right gives a healthy forum subject to continuous scrutiny. Scrutiny only helps us all perform better in our roles, and I include myself in that.
David, can I ask you? Can I ask you to? I have asked you to wind up. without going to every.
Well, I'm very disappointed though. I wasn't given the chance that somebody else was.
Oh, David, I'd actually argue that you're given more time to be honest, and
My point of order last time was completely ignored.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Councillor Evans. Councillors, is there any other anyone else who would like to speak to the delegates' report? Sorry, Councillor Hanson was next, Michael.
I think we had another one as well. It was before me, but I'm happy to go now.
Councillor Gilbert after you.
All right. I'll be quick. Just on all things library. Currently, all the branches remain closed and the mobile library service has been discontinued due to COVID. Staff are doing a wonderful job in so much as doing online story times for children and reading sessions with residents over Zoom and certainly on YouTube as well. So it's great to see them still being able to connect to communities even though we are virtual. We have an item on our agenda later today that deals with the Colac Otway Shire, which is the hottest topic at the moment within the library. A quick update from MAV. The elections have finally been confirmed to go ahead in October of this year. I think it was the uncertainty of whether it was going to be postponed or not had the hardest impact on the sector, particularly those who were sort of sitting there wanting to be able to nominate, but aren't sure if they could or if it was going to happen down the track. Mental health of Victorians is one of the highest priorities in the advocacy efforts at the moment. They decided jump in suicide rates are no laughing matter, and it's something that we have to deal with, and the advocacy around that the MAV is doing is incredible work. Having an extension of the state of emergency go before Parliament shortly for another 12 months, I think adds to people's fears of that uncertainty. And that's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hansford. Councillor Gilbert, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to take the opportunity to talk about the virtual meeting that I had with yourself and His Excellency, the Governor-General, and his wife, Mrs. Hurley. It was really wonderful to speak to them, just the two of us, wasn't it, Owen? And I took the opportunity to talk about our smaller little communities in our shire, and COVID recovery was something that we focused on, and how that those small communities are often very isolated now, and how it'll be difficult for them to come out of COVID, even perhaps being more isolated. I took great pleasure in talking about Roquid and the recent appearance on Backroads, and I think His Excellency and his wife were really interested in our rural communities, and yeah, it was just a pleasure to meet with them.
Councillor Kerr, did you have any comments to Mrs. Hurley's singing that she did for us? Mute.
It's Councillor Gilbert, Mr. Mayor.
Sorry, Councillor.
And yes, at the end of our half-an-hour session, Mrs. Hurley did sing us a song about sunshine, and she certainly has a very beautiful voice.
Thank you very much, Councillor Gilbert. Any other councillor like to speak to the delegates' report? I'll take that as no. Please jump in if just regarding my delegates' report. Things have started to get busy again, which has been good. I had Sarah Henderson came down for the announcement down at the roundabout in Bannockburn, which is very good to see that the federal government has allocated that money now down to the state government, but the advocacy still continues to make sure now the state government are using that money that's been handed down to them to get the job or the works commenced there. So I've probably lost count of the amount of media opportunities and photo opportunities for politicians down at that roundabout, but hopefully we're getting closer to seeing some soil being turned, as many residents would like to see. Also met with Stuart Grimley, MP, our local Western Victorian Upper House member, on 2 occasions in the 1 week, one on advocacy, and quite good that an independent such as Mr. Grimley to follow up a couple of items. I had follow-ups from Bannockburn School in particular a couple of days later, saying that he'd followed up on some comments there. Mr. Grimley also attended a youth forum meeting that I was in attendance with as well. So that gave members of youth the opportunity to see what it's like to be a politician, ask questions of him, and ask some personal questions and some life questions. So again, a fantastic opportunity that probably presents itself through the Zoom that some members of the youth team there that probably wouldn't have attended something like that were in attendance. Also attended St Mary's MacKillop on a local government question. So lots of kids there asking lots of questions about local government, and had to put in some requests for. They were quite interested in our local laws motorbikes issue, which was quite good. Also had the Merrill Youth Awards was presented last week. We again, and unfortunately that one had to be done again on Zoom. We had 40 young residents that received awards for that, and they all tuned in. So it was absolutely fantastic to see so many people there in attendance on that. And also for a lot of parents that were there as well. So some fantastic commentary back from some of the parents there and what that has meant to their kids. It's a small token of appreciation from us as council to the youth for volunteering and the like, but it's amazing how that small gesture has had a great impact on some families. Also had the opportunity today through the Peri-Urban Group to meet with the new local government minister, Minister Leanne. That's a few meetings now we've had with him. So he's making himself very much out there and meeting local councils and trying to get some feedback and that from a lot of councils. So he's definitely jumped in the deep end of the pool. And I did take the opportunity, there was several issues raised in that meeting, but I did take the opportunity and timely that many people will start to be getting their rates notice. We've done a lot, local government has done a lot of work in the space of the rating review that was held at the end of last year and got to the minister's desk at the end of March this year. So I am told that is going through a procedure at the moment, the rating review, and that has been presented to several, it possibly has a lot of effects on different departments of local government. So it's going through that procedure at the moment. It is hoped that review will be back to us by the end of the year. So it'd be quite exciting to see that as well. Also, just a couple of further comments to Councillor Gilbert's and I's meeting with Your Excellency. And Mrs. Hurley, they did take. I did think that they're going around meeting a lot of councils, and the Excellency, the Governor General, did take the opportunity to ask a couple of questions regarding our bird flu epidemic that's going around at the moment. So they had done a bit of research on us, seeing what was happening in that space, which was very interesting. And they also did take the moment to send on an appreciation of both the staff, the organisation, appreciating the difficulty that they would be having working from home, and also to those community members out there that are helping people through this difficult and challenging time. I'll wrap up that there, but, and I'll take account. There's no other councillors wants to speak to the. So can I get someone to move and second that, please? Moved Councillor Hansford, seconded Councillor Kirby. All those in favour? Motion is carried. Item 7.3, P19 to 007 47 Milton Drive, Bannockburn, a 2-lot subdivision. Director Josipovic, please, if I could have you introduce the report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This report relates to a planning permit application for a two-lot subdivision at 47 Middleton Drive in Bannockburn. The application has been referred to the council meeting for determination because there are objections to the application, 2 in total. The report provides a background to the application and a summary of the relevant planning considerations. Councillors have been provided with a full copy of the application and objections for consideration prior to making a decision. The recommendation before you tonight is that Council resolves to issue a notice of decision to grant a planning permit for a two-lot subdivision at 47 Middleton Drive, Bannockburn, subject to the conditions attached to the report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director Josipovic. We'll read out a submission by the applicant, Bronwyn and Jeff Davey. And for all the presentations tonight, there is a 5-minute limit on those, and I believe someone may be timing me. Thank you. Bronwyn and Jeff Davey, the applicant. Thank you for taking the time to consider our application for subdividing our 2.3 acre property at the above address. We understand that there have been 2 complaints lodged about the proposed subdivision and wish to address the concerns list within. Rather than address each complaint individually, we can break the complaints down into 2 categories, general and specific. General complaint: ambience, traffic, infrastructure. A general complaint has been lodged by a neighbouring property that does not share traffic flow, who cites infrastructure and added traffic as reasons for the complaint. Please note, it is also our understanding that this objector has sold their property and is no longer in the area. Another objector has also have some general complaints listed regarding traffic, flora and fauna, and country ambience. As our property is one of the few in the street that has significant bird attracting planting, and in subdividing, we will be doubling the landscaping. We will actually be attracting more flora and fauna. To these general complaints, the argument is simply that precedent has been set in this area with a number of blocks within the estate having already been granted permission for and are proceeding with subdivision. Therefore, loss of ambience cannot be argued. The potential for subdivision was allowed for in council's initial planning structure, and it is the right of all owners to proceed down this path within guidelines if they wish. The roads have been built to allow for extra traffic. Having said that, the objector's contention that all properties could be subdivided is actually false, as not all properties are large enough to meet minimum block requirement, including the objectors. And many properties in the area have been developed in such a manner as to preclude future subdivision. So we submit that the argument of loss of ambience and loss of infrastructure be rejected on the basis that precedent in the area has already been set, and that the possibility of subdivision was in fact allowed for in the initial development of this section of the estate. Specific complaint. The objector have also added 2 complaints that are specific to them as our immediate neighbours, one being flooding. Following the recommendation from council engineer, we would be required to ensure that adequate drainage is in place down the adjoining property fence prior to issuing a statement of compliance. In fact, this should actually improve any existing flooding that may occur and prevent overflow between the properties. In addition, both the initial septic tank on lot 1 and the new septic tank on lot 2 will be updated, installed to the council's requirements, which should eliminate the potential for flooding and overflow. Finally, as our property is heavily landscaped, currently there are 10 large garden beds ranging in size from 16 square metres to 200 metres squared, covered in plants, and the plan is to replicate on this lot 1 once the subdivision is in play. We will actually be using a lot of the wastewater along with rainwater collected in our 3 water tanks within the garden. 2, privacy. The objectors have not listed any specifics about loss of privacy. It is difficult to understand what the complaint is based on, as the way that the objectors have developed their property it is not possible to see past their existing building and infrastructure into what would be the new block. The section of their block that would be back onto the new lot is a paddock which is inhabited by sheep. During mediation, the objector suggested that one day he may want to build a big shed along the fence line, but once again, if this is the case, he would be creating his own privacy barrier. At the moment, we have had a screen of trees in place along our side of the fence. However, it is likely that this will have to be removed to ensure adequate drainage. We plan on ensuring that these are replaced with a more dense privacy option when we come to re-landscape.
5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Director. So I've got one line here, so I'll just finish it up at this. As part of the subdivision process, thank you for taking the time to consider our response to the objections. We trust that we have clearly addressed the issue and that you will agree that there is no valid legal reason to prevent the approval of this subdivision application. With respect and appreciation, Bronwyn and Jeff Davey. Thank you. Councillors, is there any questions? If there's no questions, I'll seek a mover. Moving Councillor Evans, seconding Councillor Hansford. Councillor Evans.
Look, this is pretty much what is happening throughout the area now in relationship to their subdivision requirements with the 1 acre. The objector who was concerned about the overflow issues has been basically being in the recommendations are dealt with that. We can't really do much more than that. There's a battle axe block, which still is one of the things that no council in this room would prefer to see, but unfortunately we're going to see hundreds more in the future. So it's one of those things we've got to live with. And the objectors that are actually occurring with these subdivisions are getting less over time, but it doesn't take away their right for having an objection. And I do appreciate their comments because the officers do take notice of them at times and put in appropriate recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Evans. Councillor Hansford.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, my only concern was on the drainage. I know that area can get fairly soggy down there, and water sitting in drains is definitely not fun when you've got mozzies around. So having those conditions in the permit, I think will alleviate that. And certainly the planned screening of trees, and that sounds like the privacy is not going to be an issue. So more than happy to second the motion.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hansford. Councillors, is there anyone that would like to speak against the motion? With nobody speaking against the motion, I will put it to a vote. All those in favour? Those against? Councillor Kirby, I'm unable to see you voting either for or against there. Yeah. Thank you. I can see your hand there now, Councillor Kirby. You might have to just come a little bit closer to the screen, maybe. or maybe not. I'm not too sure. It's fine. Thank you. That motion is carried. Item 7.4, three-lot subdivision and covenant variation. Again, Director Josipovic. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This report relates to a planning permit application for the development of land for the purposes of a three-lot subdivision and variation of covenant at 57 Tarraford Way, Batesford. The application was previously referred to the July council meeting for determination because there are objections to the application, 3 in total. However, the application was deferred over the question of a previous public open space contribution. Officers researched this question and can confirm there was no condition requiring a public open space contribution on the original estate subdivision P96-139, which was for a 62-lot rural residential subdivision in accordance with endorsed plans. In addition, the registered plan of subdivision for the previous development clearly states that a requirement for public open space under Section 18 of the Subdivisions Act 1988 has not been made. This report provides a background to the application and a summary of the relevant planning considerations. The councillors have been provided with a full copy of the application and objections for consideration prior to making a decision. The recommendation is that council resolves to issue a notice of decision to grant a planning permit for a stage 3-lot subdivision and the variation of covenant W587311 by removing part AI so as to allow more than one single dwelling at 57 Tarraford Way, Batesford, subject to the conditions attached to the report.
Thank you very much, Director Josipovic. I have a public presentation by an anonymous objector. Dear councillors, we would like to have further input into the decision to vary the restrictive covenant so as to allow more than one single dwelling on the land at 57 Tarraford Way, Batesford. Current landowners seem to be using the argument that their intention is to stay where they are on the current property because of the amenity of the area and that some of their neighbours support their subdivision. However, the amenity of the area is directly affected by the sizes of the subdivision, and also the original intent of the subdivision was to provide owners with at least 1 hectare. And many are closer to 2 hectares or the old 5 acres. It seems to go against everything in this area is about by allowing the existing land to be carved up into 3 separate allotments. There is land in the other subdivision in Riverstone for owners who desire a smaller allotment. We do realise the financial gain of subdividing the land, but would hope that council would realise the value of leaving this area as it was intended. We bought here for the semi-rural lifestyle it provided. Dividing one allotment into 3 certainly does not support this. If the subdivision is approved, could we at least request that only 1 additional block is created, not 2? And the covenants disallowing motorbike vehicles is at least clear to purchasers. Thank you. Councillors, is there any questions? Councillor Hansford, Councillor Kirby, Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The deferral of this item from last time was around open space contribution. Has that issue been resolved?
To the best, as I mentioned in my opening remarks, we had a look back at the file and there has not been any public open space contribution made as part of the original subdivision, but there was a piece of land that was donated to the Trust for Nature people, I believe about 14 acres, but again, that doesn't necessarily satisfy the open space contribution.
Thank you, Mr. Josipovic.
Thank you. Councillor Kirby.
Thank you. Mr. Josipovic, I'm just wondering, is there any way that we could have a section 173 put onto the landowners regarding the motorbikes in that area? And also, could you please let us know the cost involved to the applicants for the subdivision?
The cost in terms of a section 173?
Probably that, as well as the cost involved in what their it would cost because it hasn't been put on the previous owners of the land.
So my understanding is that there is a covenant that covers use of motorcycles. So a section 173 would essentially be duplicating that and be of limited value. I couldn't answer how much it costs to set up a section 173 because it depends on which lawyer you go to, etc. There is a lodgement fee, as I understand it. But I think on average, they're somewhere between $600 and $1,000 to prepare, depending on the complexity. But again, that's just a rough figure.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Kirby.
Sorry, it was also the cost of the subdivision. To have three.
Yeah.
Am I right? Sorry, am I right in saying, Councillor Kirby, that the question is regarding what the
What is the cost of the subdivision? Yes.
The open space contribution.
That's right. Yes.
So the open space contribution is calculated as 5% of the land value of the land that's being subdivided. And the process in that is we get a licensed valuer to value the land, and it can't be more than 12 months. The valuation can't be more than 12 months old before the plan of subdivision is certified.
Thank you.
Councillor Evans.
Two questions. One is more a statement of, but I believe that the open space contribution for this site could be well over 30,000. But the other question is, and that was raised by the objector in relationship to number of blocks. Now, I've been concerned about this for a long while in these areas, and I've actually proposed that we actually do have 1.5 acre type blocks in subdivisions so that they can't subdivide down again. And did planning actually have a consideration for that? Because it actually helps maintain the ambience of an area without, and on this particular site, it may have avoided the battle axe. Was that a consideration? And should it be?
So in terms of how officers deal with these, council officers assess the application as it was presented. It is not necessarily the role of officers to suggest a reduction in number of lots, etc. But the assessment must take into account all the requirements of the planning scheme. So in this instance, the application was made for 3 lots, and council officers assessed it as meeting the requirements of the planning scheme. In terms of minimal lot sizes, that would require a planning scheme amendment through the addition of potentially a schedule or some such mechanism, because the 4,000 square metre minimum lot size can be varied through a planning scheme amendment, but there would need to be strategic justification to back up an increase in the minimum lot size.
If I could respond to that, our planning scheme does state to minimise battle axe blocks. So I'm a little bit concerned. That statement is in our planning scheme, but we don't ever seem to actually do any work in that area. It might be worth something to look at in the future.
Thank you very much, Councillor Evans. Councillors, is there any further questions? I'll seek a mover of a motion. With no one, Councillor Kirby moving the motion?
Yes, I'll move it. Thank you, Mr.
Moving
Mayor.
and seconded, Councillor Gilbert. Councillor Kirby, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you. I think it's a it's a bit of a shame actually that we have to go down this path and that people are taking covenants off their properties, but at the same time it is part of the planning scheme where they are able to do this. So I'm happy to go ahead and move it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Kirby. Councillor Gilbert, seconding the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm never happy with the battle axe blocks either. Unfortunately, if we're unhappy with our planning scheme, then that's something that needs to change, and we do work on that. In this instance, I think the important thing was for us, and the deferral process was to find out whether that contribution had been previously made. We wouldn't want anyone to have to pay it twice, so to speak. So with that in mind, I'm happy to go forward with it now.
Thank you very much, Councillor Gilbert. Councillors, is there anyone that would like to speak against the motion? With no councillor speaking against the motion, I'll put it to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Thank you very much. The motion is carried. Item 7.5. 79 Baggs Road, Ross Creek. I will ask the Director to briefly introduce the report. Director Josipovic, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This report relates to a planning permit application for the use and development of land for a place of assembly at 79 Baggs Road, Ross Creek. A place of assembly is defined as per clause 73.03 of the Golden Plains Shire Planning Scheme as land where people congregate for religious, spiritual or cultural activities, entertainment or cultural meetings. The use has been described by the permit applicant as a place where the Hindu community can meet for activities such as prayers, pujas, chanting, meditation, reading, dancing, preaching, language, meetings and seminars. The proposed maximum number of people on site is 100 at any one time. The proposed days and hours of operation are 7 days per week between 5 a.m. and 10 p.m. The application has been referred to a council meeting for determination because there are 21 objections to the application and the recommendation is one of refusal. It should also be noted that there are 4 letters of support for the application. This report provides a background to the application and a summary of the relevant planning considerations. Councillors have been provided with a full copy of the application, objections and submissions of support for consideration prior to making a decision. One thing I'd also like to add is that since the agenda has been published, the owner and applicant have requested that consideration of this application be deferred to April 2021 to allow the applicant time to undertake further consultation with neighbouring properties. The recommendation before you is the council resolves to refuse to grant a planning permit for the use and development of land for a place of assembly at 79 Baggs Road, Ross Creek, for the four reasons outlined in your agenda. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director Josipovic. Councillors, I note that there has been discussion to defer this item to the April 2021 as per the applicant's request. Would any councillor like to move a deferral motion now? Moving a deferral, Councillor Evans. Would anyone like to second that motion? With no one seconding the motion, it lacks for a want of a seconder. Councillors, in that case, I will go ahead and read the applicant's public presentation statement. Dr. Sundram Silva Malani, the applicant. Response to the rural living zone provisions in the Golden Plains Planning Scheme. The site is located within the rural living zone under the Golden Plains Planning Scheme. In the rural living zone, development must be provided with certain community infrastructure and services normally expected for residential areas. The purpose of the rural living zone is to provide for residential use in a rural environment, to provide for agricultural land uses which do not adversely affect the amenity of surrounding land uses, to protect and enhance the natural resources, biodiversity and landscape and heritage values of the area, to encourage use and development of land based on comprehensive and sustainable land management practices and infrastructure provision. The rural living zone is designed to be applied in areas where the rural land has a mainly residential function. Farming may take place on the land, but this is subordinate to the residential use. Residents require certainty about the residential amenity of the area and are protected from potential incapable land uses. Farming is of a nature or scale that will not conflict with housing. Residents will have access to most of the normal services and infrastructure provided in urban areas. A place of worship falls under the discretionary of permit required uses of the rural living zone. In assessing whether the proposed use is appropriate, it is important that the above issues are to be considered. Vags Road is characterised by large rural residential lots ranging between 4 hectares and 10 hectares, with the majority of these lots currently containing a dwelling and outbuildings. The subject site currently comprises a dwelling and outbuilding. The proposal is not to change or add to these existing buildings. Only some minor internal alterations are required, so there is no visual change to the area. The zone details that the residents are to have access to most normal services and infrastructure provided in urban area. And in urban areas, normal services include access to shops, churches, offices, warehouses, etc. The zone also details the certainty about the residential amenity and protection from incapable uses is important. A place of worship is usually found in urban areas and provides a necessary service religious to the community. And this proposal is to provide a necessary service to the Indian community. In regards to the protection of the residential amenity, it is proposed to limit the hours of operation, reduce the numbers of patrons on the site at any one time, designate a set number of events, festivals for the site, reduce potential noise by level appropriate insulation of the prayer building, and provide appropriate car parking on site in order to protect the surrounding area. The amenity issues are addressed in more detail below. Responses to the residents' concerns for a planning permit at 79 Vags Road, Ross Creek. The residents living in the immediate area have raised concerns listed under each heading. To the proposed planning permit application by the Ballarat.
1 minute.
Thank you, that scared the living daylights out of me. They are listed under each heading. To the proposed planning permit application by the Ballarat Hindu Temple and Cultural Centre, BHTCC. The objection, opening hours from 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. This particular concern was one of the main issues raised by nearly all objection submitters. The BHTCC fully agrees that holding functions, events in the early morning and finishing late will disturb of sleep patterns of the neighbourhood. BHTCC will shift its activities to a later starting time of around 9 a.m. when many of the children are at school or the residents would have begun their work. The finishing time for the events could be changed to 7 p.m, so not to disturb those residents going to bed early. Objection, noise levels from events, chanting, dancing, music and prayer. This issue is not uncommon concern if some of the residents may have witnessed the loud chanting, music and prayer bells and large gatherings from some Hindu places of worship in metropolitan places. Unlike at Vags Road, most of the chanting, music and prayers will be conducted within the proposed site in the large shed within 4 padded sound absorbent walls. Firstly, the members of who may attend the proposed site are family people who are more of a docile nature and environment noise conscious. Because of that reason, they now reside in country locations. BHTCC prayers will be conducted in absolute silence as part of the Hindu prayer protocol. The priest is the only accepted person who is allowed to talk loudly during the prayer, while others listen and observe his/her directions. Thus, the noise levels that will be generated from the children who are learning classical performing arts will be kept not any louder than any other household noise levels. BHTCC does not permit any form of alcohol consumption at the venue, and also anyone who is under the influence of alcohol will be restrained from entering the premises. So the people at the venue will be vigilant of any noises from individual under any alcohol influences. Also, the noises from the prayer and music lessons at the venue will be monitored and maintained so as not to disturb the neighbourhood at all times. So was that
5 minutes, yes.
Councillors, I'm nearly halfway. I'm probably a little bit more than halfway through this one. I'll seek appreciation, or I'll seek someone to allow more time to do this. Also acknowledge that this has been distributed to all councillors who have probably read this, but happy to continue. But there is another 2 pages ahead of me, and
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Phelan.
Mr. Mayor, we've already had a motion to defer it that didn't get a seconder. I think we should be talking about the recommendation, because nobody on this tonight hasn't read that. It was all distributed today, and I think we should move on.
Councillors, are we in agreement there? I have allowed 5 minutes. I'm happy if you do want to extend it, but I do appreciate that this has been distributed and all councillors have read this. Councillor Gilbert.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I just want to note that I think there's another number of others that need to be read as well, and I think it would be appropriate to continue reading those first, and then if you wanted to return to the other one, perhaps we could consider that then.
As all the others in favour of the motion, Councillor Gilbert, would that?
And my intention is, Councillor, given that the recommendation is because there has been no deferral, if a councillor is going to move forward a motion of the officer recommendation, I don't feel that those people speaking, those ones that are being sent in, need to be read out unless that motion then fails.
I'll move the recommendation, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor,
And I'll second that.
Councillor Feeling moving the motion, Councillor Hansford seconding the motion. I just want to put emphasis on that as well. There was another 2 pages there to be read, but all councillors have read that, and it's not like we're completely overlooking that either. So, Councillor Feeling, please.
Mr. Mayor, look, the application, as we've seen by the objectors, I think that the objectors are very strongly against it. And if you look at the map that was sent out, they're in the close proximity of this proposed place of worship. And I think that we have a responsibility to the people who live in the area to uphold it. If we defer it or go on, it's just going to go on and on and on. And if they have the right to go to VCAT if they like, but right now we have got to support the people in that area for their diligence in opposing this, because they think it's going to be detrimental to their living style.
Thank you very much, Councillor Phelan. Councillor Hansford, seconding the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did have a question earlier. It's sort of been touched on, but I think it's still a little bit vague. The application is for a place of assembly, but the applicant is defending a place of worship, and it's been thrown around a little bit. Am I too far down the track now to seek clarification on assembly versus worship?
Yes, Councillor Hansford, I
That's
have
fine.
motion has come. You are supporting the motion. If you if you felt that the question was changing your mind, I'm happy to put it through because we did go over questions, but I do note that you are seconding the motion.
No, I will continue, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. I have heard from the applicant, objectors, planners, officers. After visiting the site, I think it's clear that this use doesn't fit within the planning scheme of the area. There's a large number of objectors, and those are from surrounding properties right on the boundary. It's probably one of the biggest objection lists that we've had in recent memory. I can also point out that there are many churches and places of worship across our shire that are in many different locations, but never in the middle of a low density housing area. I believe that a different location would be an appropriate place, like in an appropriate zone, would be the best way forward for this application in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hansford. Would anyone like to speak against the motion? Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, the unfortunate thing here that due to COVID, that the group couldn't actually have the due diligence regarding addressing the objectors' opposition in terms of having community meetings and trying to get resolution, which is normally the case in these type of things. The issue about the officer's recommendations and the comments regarding the taking into account the objectors, I can name in my time on council so many cases where not one objector has ever been considered in terms of a planning application. And this council, in one instance with the Maud Quarry, 100% went against the recommendation and a decision that was actually upheld in VCAT. So in terms of giving due diligence with any type of application, I think councillors have to be careful that they look at the things that happened before. Now, Councillor Nathan Hansford did talk about the churches and other things that are throughout our shire in all different zones. We're all familiar with that. And there is no reason why anything can't be in the rural living zone. We have many examples of it. We have only about 2 years ago or less, we got a nursery in I think it was the rural living zone, and all the opposition there about the traffic movements and that was all discounted. We thought it was a reasonable activity. We had another case where we had a retreat on a farm zone property. Now, a retreat is what it could be, a place of worship. It could be many things. We were quite happy to pass that. So I don't think, looking at this, we have probably done, ourselves much credit in basically saying that it's not appropriate in the rural living zone. Look, I appreciate the residents up there. There was a lot of them who complained. I went up to the local meeting there and I had a good hearing, but unfortunately I saw an element of not in my backyard, and we all face that. We all have to get over that problem. Part of the problem is in our shire that we don't zone very well. We don't have these areas that we can have people move these type of facilities into. So they have to try to find other options. And with a decision going against this, it's just one of those things that is just cementing that problem that has been in this shire, and other councillors have been complaining about this for 4 years, that we haven't got this type of zoning set up correctly. So I say, basically, given a deferment would have been a better option here to let them have their due diligence in planning. So with that, I'll have to close. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Evans. Would any councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Gilbert.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to clarify a couple of things that Councillor Evans has touched on as well. I will note that there was a public meeting in the community that was well attended by many people, including the applicant and the objectors. So I do believe that there has been a lot of conversation about their concerns and raised. And I know it perhaps hasn't been done in the correct pattern that we might normally do these things due to COVID, but there certainly has been public consultation between the applicant and the objectors. That's the first thing. The second thing is I'll also touch on Councillor Evans talking about we don't zone very well. And that's an issue in itself if that's the case, and that moving forward, the new council perhaps would be well placed to start looking heavily at zoning for particular things in different places across the entire Shire, not just in different areas. In this situation, there are 21 objectors, and all 21 of those objectors have raised very similar concerns and traffic, the hours, and I know they're willing to to alter some of those things, but the rural living zone is set out for a particular thing. And I don't believe that it meets with that criteria, and that might be better off in the heart of a township somewhere else, like a lot of other places of worship. I will note that Councillor Evans is no longer visible, so I'm presuming he is still part of the meeting. That's all I've got to add at this stage. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Gilbert. Would anyone like to speak against the motion? For the motion? Councillor Kirby.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can you hear me? Yes?
Yep, all good, Councillor Kirby.
Yep. Yeah, my concerns are that the building is just way too close to the objectors next door, the next door neighbours. If it was further into the paddock, it would have been a lot different, but being that close, it has a big impact on them for sure. I'm very disappointed that our council hasn't looked at any other commercial sites in the Golden Plains Shire. We know that this applicant could move to Delacombe, which is only a few kilometres away from where they're proposing in a commercial site. But to see developments of this nature not being built and accommodated in our Shire, I think is a big downfall on all our parts. So it's something that the new council must definitely look at into the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Kirby. Would anyone like to speak against the motion? For the motion? Councillor Phelan, if I could ask you to close, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think that we've had a fair bit of discussion on this. I think that the people have spoken. I think the people at Maud spoke over the gravel pit or the sand pit that Councillor Evans related to. I think we've had these planning problems, and we're always talking about changing the zone. So every time we get a planning application that doesn't suit the zone, we're going to change the zone. Now, we have a planning scheme, we have a zone, and we plan to it. If we want to change it, with the ratepayers pay the money, 200,000 or 300,000 to change it, that's so be it. But the way this is being played out, I think that we are here to support the people, like we did at the people of Maud, and I think it's the only way to go. They have spoken, and we've got to support them.
Thank you very much, Councillor Phelan. I'll put it to a vote. Councillors, all those in favour of the motion? Those against the motion? The motion is carried. That brings us to item 7.6, the local law number 2, general public amenity proposal to display. Again, Director Josipovic, when you're ready, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to seek approval from Council to place the proposed local law number 2, general public amenity, out on public notice and seek submissions from the Golden Plains Shire community. As you will recall, at the June 2020 ordinary council meeting, council resolved to commence proceedings to review council's local law relating to the amenity of the community. The proposed local laws have been completed with councillors' input as well as officers' recommendation. The next stage will involve the community and residents in seeking their input and comments. All proposed changes will ultimately be reviewed by Harwood Andrews solicitors. If council resolve to permit the proposed local law to be placed on public notice and open to submissions, council officers will compile those submissions and make them available to council and will give the community and its residents the opportunity to address council and to speak to their submissions in accordance with section 223 of the Local Government Act at a future date. The recommendation before you tonight is that council, 1, pursuant to section 119 and 223 of the Local Government Act, resolve to give notice of its intention pursuant to part 5 of the Act to make the Golden Plains Shire Local Law number 2 general public amenity, and 2, place on exhibition the proposed local law number 2 general public amenity 2021 for public submissions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director Josipovic. Questions, Councillor Hansford?
Sorry, I was just moving the motion, but if there's questions,
happy to come back to you, Nathan. Any questions? I'll take Nathan. I'll take Councillor Hansford as moving the motion. Moving the motion, Councillor Hansford. Seconding the motion, Councillor Evans. Sorry, Councillor Hansford.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We've spent a lot of time on this, a number of hours toing and froing on wording and what would be the best for the people and the residents of our shire. It's now time for the pub test. We'll put it out to the public, let them see what they think we have done is a good job or not, and then we'll come back to formally place this in our scheme. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hansford. Councillor Evans, seconding the motion.
Yeah, look, I wanted this local law 2 to be looked at probably in the first year of my term. Fortunately, we got it done before I got out of council, but I think it's a very good document, and I want to congratulate the people who are actually getting in touch with councillors before we completed the draft, because some of their concerns and ideas actually helped us to, develop the draft to get it to a position to be able to go out to the community. And I am hoping that we have actually covered a lot of the issues of concern, and it possibly may go well, through the consultation period without too many requests for amendments. So I think and I congratulate the officers too, who were actually very proactive in the space, well aware of the problems that they were confronting out there, and actually actively looking at a solution to the range of compliance issues and a reasonable approach to it all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Evans. Would any councillor like to speak against the motion? With no councillor speaking against the motion, I'll put it to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Item 7.7, the draft Golden Plains Shire Community Vision. Director Letic.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This report recommends council receive the draft Golden Plains Community Vision. The vision represents the views and aspirations of the community as articulated through extensive community consultation. Of note is a substantial contribution of the Community Reference Group, who have volunteered significant time and energy in shaping both the engagement methodology and undertaking community consultation. Their dedication to the community ensured thorough engagement, and that we received sufficient responses to have a statistically relevant response rate. The group live and represent different communities across the Shire, and the recommendation before you also seeks formal acknowledgement of their contribution. The vision itself provides 4 themes and many statements of intent reflecting the community aspirations. It's the very first community vision for the Shire, and the vision will guide council's planning and the creation of the next council plan. It is therefore recommended that the vision itself be referred to the next council for adoption. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director Lettick. Councillors, is there any questions before I seek a mover? Anyone like to move the motion? Moving the motion, Councillor Kirby. Seconding the motion, Councillor Rowe. Was that a hand? Sorry, Councillor Rowe, was that you seconding the motion? Sorry, you're on mute.
No,
Sorry.
look, listen, I was just turning a page, but no, I'll second the motion.
Councillor Kirby, moving the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What a great document. What a great piece of community feedback that we received. And I'd just like to acknowledge all the people who took place in, even from the wider community, their engagement, their vision for the future for 2040. It was thrown backwards and forwards, a lot of different ideas, but some of the directors, the ones involved, Ben and his team, they did a fantastic job in accommodating some of the changes that were needed to put in place, but still focusing on what the people and the wider community wanted within this vision. So I congratulate everyone, and I'm really, really pleased for this to go out to the community, and really look forward to the next lot of councillors taking this on board. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Kirby. Councillor Rowe, seconding the motion.
Yeah, look, listen, I just like to enforce just what Councillor Kirby just said. I'd like to thank all for their input, and to be honest with you, they're some of the most passionate lot that I've come across in their presentation as well. So I'd just like to congratulate them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Rowe. Would any other councillors like to speak against the motion? With no one speaking at the motion, I'll put it to a vote. All those in favour of the motion? And that is unanimous. Thank you very much. And I'd also personally like to acknowledge Councillor Kirby's work on that process as one of the delegates for that. Councillor Rowe's comments there. We were given a presentation by the 2040 members last week, and many councillors, including myself and directors right up to CEOs, had commented that is one of the best presentations that we've had in our term. So well done to all those committee members, and fantastic document for the next council to first read. Thank you. Item 7.8, Sport and Active Recreation Strategy 2020-2030. Again, Director Lettick, please.
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor. This report recommends that Council note the submissions received during the public exhibition of the draft Sport and Active Recreation Strategy 2020-2030, and also following those submissions and some very minor changes to be made, adopt that strategy. The strategy itself has been developed following extensive community consultation and the public exhibition period. The strategy's goal is to improve the livability and physical activity levels of residents, taking into consideration the demographics across the Shire. A vision has been developed for the strategy: active, connected and livable communities through sport and active recreation. And what that means is that we want active and healthy communities through participation, programming and activation of our many community facilities. Livability, focusing on places and spaces and quality environments. And connectedness, which focuses on community cohesion through sport and active recreation participation, volunteering, gender equity and inclusion. There is a very minor edit to the agenda papers. On page 20 of the strategy, 29 of attachment 2, there is a tick indicating the availability of tennis at Linton. There are courts, there is infrastructure within Linton, but they're not usable at this stage. So we'll be removing that tick from the published version. I now present to you the report for your consideration.
Thank you very much, Director Letic. Any questions? I'll seek a mover if there's no questions. Councillor Hansford moving the motion and seconding the motion, Councillor Evans. Thank you. Councillor Hansford.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is, again, one of those great reports that we get as councillors. You can see the work that's been done in the background, and I would like to congratulate all the officers on the work that's been put into this. The community consultation has been extensive, and that is shown by the amount of reports that we've got back to council. I was involved in pre-COVID, a couple of the conversations with the community, and what was coming back into us that informed the first draft of this was a really good consultation, and from the community the input was great. This is a high-level document, and it will give direction to the inclusion or exclusion of individual projects and issues raised by that public consultation. Active recreation will be a key in bouncing out of this darkness that we know as lockdown, and I believe that there'll be a lot more people will appreciate the social connectedness that active recreation naturally promotes after these restrictions ease. More than happy to move this motion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hansford. And seconding that motion, sorry, was that Councillor Evans, wasn't it? Yep, sorry. Councillor Evans, my apologies. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Basically, these type of documents are the ones that we set ourselves up for the future. One of the interesting things in the document is Action 43, which is the strategy to actually look at the capital works assessment tool. Now, with a shire like ours that is so diverse and so many small communities, this tool in itself has to be very well utilised so that we can justify the expenditure in the different sports and aspirations of our communities. Essentially, the model going forward, we can't offer everything. We have to offer the items that provide the greatest benefit for the greatest number within our constraints of our budgets. And with this type of strategy going forward, with the support of the CEO and the senior management team, we'll make a much better assessment of these type of activities in the future. So I think that's a positive structure in it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Evans. Would any councillor like to speak against the motion? With no councillor speaking against the motion, I will put it to a vote. All those in favour of the motion? The motion is carried. Item 7.9, the Leedale Equestrian Centre Master Plan. Again, Director Letic, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Leedale Equestrian Centre provides equestrian opportunities to the local community and attracts users from across the region and the state. This centre plays an important role in supporting equestrian activities in Golden Plains Shire. Highlighted by its usage, the volume of community feedback received during the engagement for the development of the master plan. The centre is a council-owned facility and home to 4 local clubs: the Leedale Pony Club, Bannockburn Teesdale Riding Club, Geelong and District Carriage Riding Club, and the Inverleigh Riding Club. Council committed funds in its 1920 budget to develop the master plan, and the brief was to assess the demand of the facilities related to the site, review the condition and provision of current facilities, and to identify capital and strategic development opportunities that will help the club and council to improve what is available within the facility. The recommendations within the master plan are broken into key areas for improvement: general, arena, pavilion, horse and float area, and site access. The recommendation before you is that Council note the contributions of the stakeholders in the development of the master plan and to adopt the Lee Dale Equestrian Centre Master Plan 2020. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director Letic. Councillors, any questions or anyone would like to move that motion? Councillor Evans.
The question I'd ask is, when I went through the documentation and I added up the cost of the potential improvements, is probably probably end up around about $1 million or so, and it would be over a period of years. But with that type of money, what is the expectation of council's contribution in that? Do you have any idea on that, please?
Thank you, Councillor Evans. The council's the policy itself, and also the application of council's commitment to the role would also revert to the sport and recreation strategy. And you mentioned the policy development and the identification of where council will make contributions and where the community will make contributions through clubs and sporting club contributions. There's no, generally what happens with funding, there's a formula of a ratio that's provided with stakeholders to the funding. Sometimes it's 1-to-1, sometimes it's 2-to-1. We would absolutely be working with the range of partners, including funding bodies and the clubs themselves, to make contributions. There's no exact amount in terms of what council's contribution would be, and at the point in time when it was being considered, it would be considered for council through the draft budget development.
If I could ask just another final question. When I was looking at the usage that each club was putting up, I was trying to work out in my head how often it's used, weekends and that, and I got totally confused by how each club was putting up so many days this and so many days that. And do we actually have a figure? Do we know if it's used every weekend, or do we have that figure sitting somewhere around? Or
we have some utilisation figures. I don't have that at the top of my head. I can make that available to you, Councillor Evans, based on our consultation. It is the type of sport that is each of the clubs use it at different times and different times throughout a year as well. But I'll need to make that available to you separately.
Because it seemed to me that the only way it would work if there was multiple clubs using on the same day or weekend. So yeah, very, very confusing the way it was presented. Thank you.
Would anyone, any further questions, or someone like to move the motion? Moving the motion, Councillor Hansford. Is that moving the motion, Councillor Hansford? Yeah, thank you. And seconding the motion, Councillor Kirby. Councillor Hansford.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Lee Dale is a great facility in its infancy. This is a master plan that will shape the way it's used for many years and possibly generations to come. A massive 163 responses from community members and users shows that there's a serious interest in this site and with the clubs that are attached to it. It'll take an incredible amount of money to realise its full potential, and I think Councillor Evans' $1 million plus is well in the realm, if not more. But with a great plan and with passionate people, grants and funding will follow. We've seen this plenty of times before, and I think the Wadi Alec Equestrian Centre is a prime example of this. Happy to support this site, and happy to move the motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hansford. Councillor Kirby.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, once again, 163 respondents is a fantastic effort from the community and the surrounding areas. But we must note that it does take on a lot of responsibility from people within the community to keep this facility going. Quite a few years ago, the Committee of Management were battling to have get people on board to run the committee. So I'm just urging that everyone in the community put their hand up, just make sure that they're willing to participate and be part of maintaining the grounds or fundraising in whatever capacity they can. We know this is a sport where girls are the main participants, and they range from very young to elderly people. So we know this opens the door for a lot of young girls and older women in the community. So let's see it go ahead and fulfill its dreams of what it would like to achieve. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Councillor Kirby. Would anyone like to speak against the motion? If no one's speaking against the motion, I'll put it to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is, just shut. All those in favour of the motion? Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Motion is carried. Also, I'd just like to add that I attended the AGM of the Leadale Equestrian Day last night, and Councillor Kirby's comments there and Councillor Hansard's comments are spot on with regards to them being growing extremely passionate about that master plan, and something they absolutely highlighted in their AGM last night. And as with every community group, always seeking more involved members. Councillors, before I move on to the next item, can I have someone move a motion to suspend standing orders for a 5-minute recess? Moved Councillor Hansard, seconded Councillor Gilbert. We'll just break for a 5-minute recess.